And welcome again to another edition of MyStartup.live. I'm Kevin Allen, and we're here in Southern California, and I have a special guest who's driven up from San Diego, Mr. Mike Jacobsen. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
Mike is with a new tech startup called It's Borrowed. Mike, why don't you give me a little bit of background about It's Borrowed, and we'll showcase it later on the show.
Sure. We are a mobile technology, and this came about maybe a year and a half ago, and I was in Florida on a business trip, and a bunch of guys wanted to go play golf, and of course there was a way to rent clubs, and there was no way to rent golf shoes.
Famous.
So it had just rained, it's really slippery, and I'm thinking to myself, with all these houses that are surrounding this golf course, is someone willing to rent me a set of size 12 golf shoes? So I can put forth my best effort.
So you have to spend the $80 in the clubhouse, right?
I wish. We're talking $180 if you buy it in the clubhouse, and you've got 4 pairs at home.
Of course.
So I came home and I thought about this, and I'm trying to research to figure out, is there a way to acquire items that are necessary, for surfing or for DIY without having to spend a bunch of money for items I might use once or twice.
Of course.
And started putting this together and figuring out how much the tech is going to cost, and put together a development team and went for it.
So in this case, you really had a personal pain that you wanted to solve, and you were just like, I'm doing anything in my power, in my knowledge base, to solve this equation.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just me. It's everyone. The millennials are kind of, leading the way on the whole
non-ownership.
Yeah, on the whole non-ownership. But what was funny, what I found, is that while the millennials are the ones asking, hey, can I borrow your stuff or rent it from you, it's only like 22% of the millennials that said, hey, I want to do that, I want to rent your stuff. But when I asked the people that actually owned the items, 40% of them said yeah. Wow. And so it's people my age or older that have a garage full of stuff. Yeah. I've got kayaks
or attic full of stuff.
There you go. And so 40% of people like me who own all this stuff are saying, yeah, I would love to rent this out.
And make a little money here and there.
Yeah. And, all the camping gear, if you think about camping, you're probably spending $800 just assembling a little bit of gear to go camping. Some people do it once in their entire lifetime. And now they're just sitting on all this
Or once
gear.
a season, maybe even. Something
right.
like that.
And so there's a whole bunch of underutilized items that we have that we can rent out, we get them back, and if we rent out something maybe 10 times, we just paid for it. We can go get a brand new one.
And then you could even sell that, let's say, multi-used item that several people used, even on eBay or after that, permanently. So how'd you get to starting the team and sort of talk me through, you've got the idea, you kind of thought about how much it might cost, but how'd you get from there to kind of where you're at today?
So I was living in Walnut Creek, California, which is just outside of San Francisco.
Okay. Bay Area, and had been in the sales side of things for a long time, working for some successful startups at VP of Sales, and then previous to that was at Demand Force. We had an exit there, and so learned a lot about the actual technology side of things when working with those teams. And it was about having a co-founder that was a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, to kind of help me out with that. Is he or she from Southern California?
My CTO now is from Southern California. Okay. Navy guy. He was up at Apple in the Bay Area as an engineer, and I've actually been developing in Mexico.
Nice. Okay, good source. I haven't heard Mexico before, but this is good progress. NATO. Not NATO,
yeah.
NAFTA country, excuse me, NAFTA country.
Right, and what's really cool about working with Mexican developers is that culturally it's very, very close to what's happening in the United States. The time difference is maybe 1 hour.
Right.
So we can collaborate at the same time.
Right. So you're not having to deal with, like, let's say India or Bulgaria, some of this common Ukraine, some of the common sources for outsourcing your tech. So right. Mexico's probably growing pretty fast then, I would assume. It
is. So we have a full stack developer in Mexico, a product manager here in San Diego who is bilingual and is able to find engineering help for us.
Okay.
And then QA is done in San Diego as well, another bilingual Spanish-speaking person. And then me as the product owner who's giving the direction to the whole entire
Actually, I think that's a good topic because a lot of technology that's developed really doesn't take into account even multi-languages too. Are you? Will this kind of be something that you could port even in Spanish itself, like the whole app?
It somewhat has to, being that there's so much Spanish speaking in Southern California, actually in California in general.
Well, I would argue even the whole United States. I mean, you have Florida, you have Texas. There's a lot of population in those border states.
Right. And so, I mean, we have to go in that direction.
Yeah.
The current build is only in English,
Okay.
but certainly Spanish is the direction we're
Something to
heading.
think about, and definitely for startups out there, language is a big consideration. If your customer can't read your material or can't functionally use your app because of language, it's going to deter them from looking at it.
Yeah. So we have just launched a beta. We have a live beta, so it's open for anyone to use.
Okay.
And it's really about learning from the customer, what are their tendencies for renting, items from other people. And the customer is really who's going to drive the direction that this product takes. There are a few people that are trying to do this or, whittling their way through, figuring out how an app like this is going to work. And it's all about getting customer feedback, learning what they love, and building upon that.
So you talked a little bit about surveying. You had some percentages at the beginning. How did you conduct those surveys, and then how are you going to continue that sort of surveying your customers to get all that feedback, into your developers' hands?
We used SurveyMonkey initially, and then we're going to another SurveyMonkey pretty soon. And it's the way to spend the least amount of money to figure out if you actually have something that might work.
Of course.
Before you go do a bunch of development and spend $100,000 or even have a conversation with, hey, you want to partner up on this project with me, it's important to get the customer feedback. So for $100, you can get 30 or 40 responses that are exactly the questions that you want to ask someone, and you can target the demographic.
Yeah.
So I went in that direction, used SurveyMonkey, and now we're taking a different direction. We're actually going to start doing audio recordings and video recordings via FaceTime.
Watching them actually use the app,
right?
Essentially. Wow. So you get that visual seeing what they're visually stimulated by, what they're looking at, their confused face, or something of that nature.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't think about the confused face, but that's a good point. And it's good information to have when targeting investors.
That's right.
It's easy to, I wouldn't say falsify, but come up with some data and kind of skew data when it's in a spreadsheet.
Just pick the numbers that look good, right?
Right. Yeah, so you can make things stand out that are very small segments. But when you're doing an audio recording of someone off the street or a video recording, with Join Me or with FaceTime, it is honest, real, raw data. And that's what investors are asking for.
Well, that's a great point because that's one of the reasons why we live stream, and we're live streaming to you direct from the Applebox network, and we interview our CEOs and founders live because it's the quickest way of getting that immediate, authentic feedback. So, and to that point, surveying is very, very critical part of development, the development stage of a startup. You need to get your customers' feedback. And get it early so that you can know what challenges you will face or what features they're going to want to need going forward.
Exactly.
So you said a figure like $100,000. Have you put a lot of your own money into this? At this stage, where are you with sort of the funding of this project?
So as of right now, we've put $249,000 into this project. $180,000 of that is mine.
Okay.
So I wrote a little article about taking the leap and finding something you really want to invest your time and money into, and how do you go through that process. And so I sold my house up in the Bay Area in Walnut Creek and moved down here, and part of the proceeds went to paying for our build. And then friends and family have kicked in another $50,000 or more, a little bit more, to get this done.
Also, another great point and great piece of advice is that family and friends are going to be probably your best source of initial funding. A lot of startups talk about, I'm going to go to these VCs and everything like that. Is far away from where you're probably at. You need to start first with the people who know you, who are close to you, and who are going to bet on you as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. And then what I've found out is that friends and family can mean very different numbers for different people. So I was talking with an entrepreneur, and he said, "Yeah, we did a friends and family round, raised $2 million in 2 weeks," and I was like, "How is that even possible?"
Can I be in your family?
Yeah, and he had a previous exit.
Okay.
So when someone has a previous exit and they mention friends and family, they want to
Right.
pull some funds together. There's all types of people from Wall Street that are friends and family at that point,
Right.
because you
Right.
made people a bunch of money.
Of course.
But for someone like me, where this is a first technology venture,
Okay.
I've had other successes in real estate and in finance and stuff like that. But asking for $5,000 is substantial to a lot of people, and for them to kick in that amount.
Yeah, and then they don't know that you have the expertise or that you have the wherewithal technology-wise to get it done at this stage, right? They know that you're an entrepreneur and they know that you're successful, but they don't know that this is your world,
Right.
per se.
And the thing is, I'm either going to bring in experts, that do the technology, because I am by no way a technical founder. And I'm a business development founder, and it's my job to bring in the people that can build it. And they have to just trust in that, because they've never seen you actually produce a product.
Of course, and it's a product that is somewhat intangible. That's one of the difficulties of tech, is that it's not a product until it's finished almost. Whereas some of the sort of hard part products you can see a prototype of that's somewhat functional. Well, let's get a little down and dirty and showcase what It's Borrowed is all about, and how would they find the app right now? It's Borrowed on Android and iOS?
Yes, we are in both app stores.
Okay.
So the app is built in hybrid,
Okay.
which allows us to deploy to both app stores at the same time, which is really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And also your feature updates will sort of be in line and on both platforms.
Exactly. Yeah, they're built in parallel. It does give you some limitations as to some of the product features that you can have in there. iPhone has specific things that you can do. Android has specific things that you can do. But to the person on the street, they probably won't know the difference.
Right. Right. And interface is going to be very similar.
Yeah,
So-
for example, this is the iPhone. I generally use an Android. And in looking at this, there are some like test flight features that I have on here that are going to look a little bit different on Android, but essentially it's the same product.
Well, a little point, and not a plug for Apple, but it was the 10th anniversary of the iPhone today, or yesterday. So yeah, we're here on an iPhone. So we're demonstrating technology 10 years later that is really mind-blowing.
Right.
So let's take a look. So It's Borrowed is live on the phone here. Do we have it up on screen, Sean? We do. All right.
So when you log in to It's Borrowed, you're going to see a feed of hot items
Okay.
that are in your area. And it's also going to say how much per day these items are.
Okay. So generally they're being rented or they're being borrowed per day on a per day, not really per hour per se.
We have per hour on our roadmap, but we wanted to keep it very, very simple. I'm from the school of, like, if I rent something like a surfboard from a surf shop that's in San Diego, I don't want to have to worry about like getting it back or being charged another $30 for that hour.
Right, because the waves are really hitting, and you're just like, I'm going to stay out here.
Well, yeah, not only that, I've never surfed before on a surfboard, so I'm probably going to suck really bad, and I'm going to need more than 1 hour for sure. So we didn't want our users to have to think about rushing back. So it's actually a little bit of a loose return.
Okay.
The owner of the item and the renter of the item are going to negotiate a pickup time and a drop-off time.
Okay.
So whether it's 25 hours or it's 20 hours, we're going to go.
You're not counting every hour. You're just saying, okay, well, you're going to take it on Thursday, and then you're going to return it Saturday, so that's 2 days.
Right.
Roughly.
Surfboard rental is somewhere around $25 an hour. And when we're surveying our users, the likeliness of them charging 24 hours times $25 is really low. They're looking to make about $25 a day.
Right. So considerable cost savings if you're renting a surfboard.
Right.
Because now I can go surfing for 5 hours and really only cost me $20 versus $125 for a whole day.
Yeah, and you're not having to sweat getting it back within that hour.
And even I saw a snowboard on there, and snowboards, I mean, at least we're here in Southern California, it's not snow next door, so it's going to take you some time to get there. You may be staying overnight, and then you're coming back the next day. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We also, the action sports are something that people want to try. In San Diego, when I came down, I just moved down here in October, and everyone says, "Oh, you have to go kite sailing. It's so much fun. You have to go surfing. It's so much fun. Do you have a longboard? Do you have a long skateboard?
Yeah. And it's all this equipment you've never had before."
Right. It sounds really cool, but the idea of me being really good at all these sports and having the time to do them all,
and store all those items too.
Right.
That's probably a bigger sell point for the let's say for the borrower, is that they don't want to take this stuff home for good. I don't have a place for it in my garage.
Right.
Right now.
And that's why the table saw seems to be one of the things that people talk about a lot. It's something you want to use because you're a DIYer, and there's some program on TV where you can build a headboard out of reclaimed barn wood. Well, it requires a table saw, which is probably the size of this table, that we're sitting in front of here. No one has a place to store that. They're going to use it for 1 hour and then not again for another 5 years.
Right.
So items like that probably exist within, 4 blocks of your house.
Wow.
And you could literally wheel it down the street.
Of course.
Rent it for $10.
Or have the borrower come pick it up.
Exactly.
So let's go ahead and pull an item. I need a drill today. So I was thinking about drilling some. I was thinking about constructing something. I need a drill.
Sure. So we found a drill here that is it's 30 miles. So it's right at the edge of our search territory. We can actually shrink that down to.
And you can actually modify that filter for distance as
Right.
well. You can do it within a 5-block radius or whatnot.
Right. If it was something that was highly specialized, I might be willing to drive 30 miles to go get that.
Right.
Or I can actually I could do a search and look for things that are at my destination.
Right.
So if I'm going out to the desert, I know I'm going to need a bunch of ice chests. I can look at ice chests that exist right by where I'm
Which, by
going.
the way, Yeti ice chest costs nearly $1,000, so renting it is a good option as well.
Not buying one is the best option. And any other means of getting your hands on one.
So what do I do from there? So I can chat with the lender.
Correct. So you can hit chat, and this will allow you to communicate back and forth.
Okay.
And then once you've arranged a time to pick it up, then you're sending the request over, and you're basically just choosing the days you need this item.
Okay.
You go pick it up. You click that you've picked up the item. Drop the item off. You click.
And I notice here they've got a replacement value. So if I lose it, that's what I'm going to have to pay the person, or damage it in a way that's, let's say, it's non-repairable. I might have to pay for it.
Right. So what we've asked someone to give us the value of their item if they were to sell it on Craigslist.
Okay.
So if it's a beat up or it's an older item, like this drill looks like it's got, actually that one looks pretty new. But if it was something that was 5 years old, it was one of my drills, I'd probably put it on there for half of what the new value was.
Right.
And then there's an arbitration. If you break something, but it's not completely useless, we will actually arbitrate.
As a service, you're providing that service to both the lender and the borrower.
Mm-hmm. And the insurance, we cover up to $500 in replacement. So if you borrow a surfboard and you happen to break it in half, or a shark eats it, something horrible happens to the surfboard, we will pay the owner up to $500.
Wow.
And the insurance is included
in the cost of the
rental. So the way that it works is much like Ticketmaster, where if I am renting, I'm going to pay a 10% premium to It's Borrowed, and the person who owns the item is paying 10% of the rental back to us. So we're capturing 20% total, which allows us to
offer the insurance as part of the service. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's more than just an app, again, and that's a thing I like to talk about when we talk about startups, is that, it's not just technology. There's a whole service behind the technology that companies need to be aware of and offer. And I think that you've already thought of some of those items. What about injury or sort of something like that? Like, I don't want to get into too much legal stuff, but,
So
good question.
You raised a good crate. I have a chainsaw for example,
Exactly.
at my house, and I'm not opposed to letting someone rent this out. We are simply an intermediary
Right.
that is introducing people to each
Right.
other. and
You're
we're
connecting people.
Right, and we're handling the cash in between, so you're not having to bring a check, and
Right.
you're not having to worry about your stuff never coming back. So we used the terms of service from a very, very popular car sharing company,
Okay.
and had our attorneys rewrite it and come up with coverage for us. But essentially, the risk runs between the two people. Heaven forbid someone does hurt themselves with a
Right.
chainsaw. I am not liable, and the person that rented the chainsaw to them is not
Right.
liable.
You still need to, but that's what also the chat is for, is asking the questions, maybe providing some sort of tutorial to the person before they come and pick it up, so that they know, how to treat it in some way, or even offering the manual with it and saying, here's all the necessary information you need.
And you could, there's another way to work it too. So in the messaging, you can actually message, hey, can I come check this out first and see if it's too heavy?
Right.
Once you go and you look at the item and you figure, yes, I can pick this up, or if it's snowboard boots, yes, these do fit, then you can actually do the request right there on the spot.
So you can kind of save it in your sort of wish list, and then when you're at the lender's facility or they're at your place, you can decide to actually make the transaction right there.
Right. Yeah.
Sort of on hold almost.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever had poorly fitting snowboard boots before,
It's
but
not fun.
your feet are popsicles by the end of the day, so it probably is a great idea to go try on something like a snowboard
Yeah,
boot
definitely.
before you click request.
So what if I wanted to list my own stuff?
So listing your own stuff literally takes you about 1 minute.
Okay.
And this is something that we wanted to fine tune first.
Okay.
To make sure that there was something easy. So, for example, if I'm going to post a water bottle, I am going to tap Add Photo, and go to Camera. Now we're going to put in the zip code where this exists.
92618. All right.
And the reason we use zip code is we don't give away the user's address.
Until the transaction's taking place.
Correct, because if you are, for some reason, renting out a $500 diamond ring.
I know that yet $500 diamond ring is at your house.
Yeah, and so we didn't
get
want to
it.
give up that
course.
location, just one of the security features.
So there's a trust factor that's built in the transaction.
Right. So I have listed a water bottle. We do have a $4 minimum per day. The reason being is we cover all the credit card transaction fees.
Okay.
So money is moving in to the
So
system.
it is a cashless system, though.
Correct.
Okay.
So the way it works is if I'm renting something out and you put a request to me, once I click yes, I will accept that request. Money moves from your account through Stripe into It's Borrowed.
Okay.
And then when I want to get paid, I click a button that says, take my money out, and it sends it to me via PayPal.
So that's the sort of escrow almost that's in the middle.
Right.
Okay.
And so you can use the funds in-app, kind of like stack it up like you would do in Venmo, or you can disperse the funds directly to you.
Okay. So you can have almost like a borrowing fund for certain things that you may need on a daily basis.
Yeah, or a secret fund, I guess. Would be.
Or better yet, like that TV I bought the other day, I could have rented it.
Right. Your wife would notice the new TV on the wall, though.
Right.
So we have put our water bottle on here, and we're going to click Publish. Now, the nice thing about renting out items like this is that my water bottle is now forever in the system and can be rented out a multitude of times.
Right.
If I were to post something on Let Go, I post it once, someone comes and picks it up for
Once
$5.
it's sold,
It's gone.
yeah, it's gone. You have to redo that whole transaction. So again, you're saving time for the borrower, the lender, excuse me. In that you're saving that in the system.
Exactly. So now it's available to rent.
Wow.
Another thing, you think about like parties or something like that. And I have one barbecue at my house that I just bought. It doesn't work that well, and I could fit probably 8 burgers on it. So if I have 30 or 40 people at my house, I can
You
either
want
get
one
a
of those
caterer.
pig barbecues, the one that's got the spit. You can stick this spiedina.
Exactly.
In Italian, they call it spiedina.
I need a spiedina, or just possibly another barbecue.
Of course.
It exists literally within 5 houses of you. There are a multitude of barbecues.
And they've got them on wheels. They can roll them down to you, you know, and someone's getting something for it. That's the point. You know, the inconvenience factor of the lender is that they're getting something back for it.
Yeah. And what we found is that, you know, through going on Nextdoor and getting a bunch of feedback through Nextdoor, the people that know each other are typically not going to have any type of transaction in place.
Right, right.
And so
I'm
you
just
can
going to lend it to my next door neighbor.
right,
maybe.
and you can use the app for doing that as well, just by doing the messaging back and forth and say, hey, Doug, you know, we talked about, you know, your barbecue.
I saw your barbecue on It's Borrowed. You mind if I just borrow it, literally? You know, so you don't even have to necessarily do the actual transaction for your next door neighbor, but down the street, maybe someone you don't know, there's money there.
Right, and what's that? You know, and thinking, having that mindset about like not charging led us down the road to think about, you know, what about nonprofits and not-for-profits that are right. So like the first T.
Or events. I was thinking events because I come from events. You know, an event, there's a ton of equipment I needed when I was doing my events that we didn't necessarily have, or that some service provider needed to provide at a very high premium.
And so like natural disasters or fires too. So the American Red Cross could essentially use our app and say, hey, we're in need of pumps because it was a flood that happened. And so people aren't necessarily going to donate their $300 pumps that they have for pumping out their basement. But now they can rent out that $300 pump to someone or let someone use it for free.
Yeah.
You know, if people
A lot
need,
of causes that it could go for.
yeah, if it's super cold and there's, you know, a fire happened to your house, people might be willing to let you just borrow their really nice heavy-duty jacket.
So you're in open beta. How long have you been in open beta?
We've been in open beta for about 2 months now.
Okay. And what's the sort of timeline for formal launch? You know, we're ready to sort of, you know, pump a lot of advertising into this, and what are you going to do at that point to sort of get that audience out there?
That's a good question, because the developers are never happy with their products and they never want to launch. It's always like, oh, we need to fix this and this and this. I think that we are at a very stable place in our MVP, and it's time to get out there. And in doing so, we want to be able to market correctly and do some very edgy type growth, you know, hack type things that I've you know, got in the works. So we'll be out of beta in probably about a month, and then it's about like pumping some funding into this, and we're fundraising right now to be able to kind of put our foot on the gas for some of the marketing.
So you got your pitch deck ready. You're ready to go in front of, obviously, the next phase of investors, which is not your family and friends, but, you know, really institutional investors or angel investors in this case.
Right. Yeah, so we're looking for a group of angels or a micro VC or a regular VC, or, you know, essentially whoever is in the right, you know, ballpark for us and has some industry expertise.
It seems like it has a pretty broad user base that really can take off if you get the right formula in place for awareness. I think, I mean, you got a great tool there, something that everybody could use, you know, almost on a weekly, daily basis, maybe even just monthly, who knows. So let's take a little look at the little video that Mike's brought with us to educate us a little bit more about It's Borrowed.
Hi, this is Katie. Katie wants to go camping, but she doesn't have a tent. She doesn't have a lot of money or storage space in her apartment, so buying a tent is not an option. Luckily for Katie, she just installed the It's Borrowed app for her smartphone, which lets her find all sorts of items for rent, locally, or while she's on vacation. Dawn has the perfect tent nearby for just $10 a day. Simply pick up the tent and return it when you're done. The money exchanges seamlessly through the app, so you won't need to bring cash. Can't find an item nearby? Post a request to people around you. Or start making money and rent out items yourself. It's Borrowed will secure the value of your item in the event of loss or damage. It's Borrowed. Invest in the experience, not the equipment.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Mike, for bringing that video in. Thank you for educating us about It's Borrowed. It seems like you've really had a journey. You've gone into different industries up in Northern California, you're living in Southern California, you're dealing with Mexico for development,
Yeah, it's now an international project that literally started in my garage. But it's a ton of fun.
Those are the best stories.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with It's Borrowed. You can download it today on Android and iOS. Start listing your items. Give Mike a little bit of support, and we'll see you next time on It's Borrowed. On MyStartup.live. My apologies.
And it's borrowed.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.